kindly settle down and take your seats. Thank you. And welcome to the first conference of the Capability Building on Innovative Leadership for the Legislative Staff or CBILLS program, Reshaping the Future of Public Policy for Innovative Governance. I am Krisha De Leon from the Development Academy of the Philippines, and I am pleased to be your host for this momentous event for the CBILLS program. To formally start our program, may we ask everyone to stand and pay courtesy to our flag with the singing of the national anthem and invocation to be led by the DAP singers.
Hayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisir. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bugha, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di magdidilim. Noon ang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Signore, mi rende uno strumento della vostra pace. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, dove c'è odio, lasciarlo seminare l'amore. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. dove c'è ferita, perdono, dove c'è dubbio, fede, dove c'è disperazione, sperare, dove c'è tenerezza, illuminarsi, dove c'è la tristezza, gioia. Oh, divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we will live again. It is in dying that we will live again. It is in dying that we will live again to eternal life. Il Signore, make me an instrument of your peace.
You may now take your seats. Today marks a pivotal moment in the history of the CBILLS program as we gather for this inaugural conference. This event signifies not only a milestone, but also an exciting opportunity for collaboration, learning, and innovation that bridges both public and private sectors. Together, we can explore new ideas and forge meaningful partnerships that will shape the future of public policy. Thus, we would like to thank everyone here today, our resource persons, panelists, valued partners from the private sector and executive branch, those tuning in through our live broadcast, and of course, our scholars from the House of Representatives and Senate of the Philippines. To formally commence the conference, may we request the President and CEO of the Development Academy of the Philippines, Dr. Mahalea Ravago, to give the welcome remarks and introduce our keynote speaker.
Please allow me to greet our partners. From the Senate of the Philippines, Honorable Francisco Chis Escudero, Senate President, who sent us a message via video and who I believe will be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Senator Chis. Attorney Sarina Grace Serrano, Executive Director for Legislation. Our partner from the House of Representatives, Attorney Roberto Dante Maling, Deputy Secretary General for Finance, Dr. Edgardo Pangilinan, Deputy Secretary for Legislative Information Resources Management, Attorney Jeneline Go Sison, Deputy Secretary General for Administration, and of course, colleague from DAP, Senior Vice President Magdalena Mendoza, Vice President Amy Caluen, colleagues from Public Service and the Development Sector, partners from the academe and private sectors, and our CBILLS scholar. Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ayan, gising na. I am very pleased to welcome you all to the inaugural conference of the Capability Building on Innovative Leadership for Legislative Staff or CBILLS program. This event represents a pivotal moment in our shared journey toward advancing governance in the Philippines. For 7 years, the CBILLS program has been instrumental in empowering legislative staff with skills, knowledge, and innovative mindset essential for driving transformative public policy changes. Today's conference is not only a reflection of the program's success, but also of the Development Academy of the Philippines' unwavering commitment to building capacities that strengthen both individuals and institutions alike. Our mission at the DAP has always been to ignite innovation, promote collaboration, and inspire leadership that can address the nation's most pressing policy challenges, whether at the national or local level. The CBILLS program is a testament to this mission, and today we are taking it a step further. By participating in this conference, you are contributing to an inclusive path of economic and social transformation, reinforcing the Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028 under the Marcos Jr. administration. Your involvement in this program underscores our shared dedication to fostering innovation, adaptability, and excellence in public service delivery. With the theme, Reshaping the Future of Public Policy for Innovative Governance, we are setting the stage for critical discussions on how emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, can revolutionize policy-making processes. The era we are entering calls for nothing less than agile, forward-thinking leadership. Leaders equipped not only with the latest tools, but with the capacity for ethical, responsible, and human-centered governance. We are fortunate to have with us today some of the brightest minds in the field, resource persons who will guide us in exploring how technology can enhance policymaking and organizational development. Equally significant are the presentations by our own CBILLS scholars who will showcase their innovative, data-driven approaches to solving real-world policy challenges. To our participants, I encourage you to fully engage in this unique opportunity. Interact with the speakers, explore the exhibit, and immerse yourselves in the discussion. Let today be more than just an exchange of ideas. Let it be a moment of inspiration that will equip you with fresh perspective and innovative solutions to bring back to your workplace. Together, we are building a Congress that is more proactive, more responsive, and more attuned to the needs of the Filipino people. Together, we are working toward a shared vision as enshrined in Ambisyon Natin 2040 of matatag, maginhawa at panatag na buhay nating mga Pilipino para sa bagong Pilipinas. Let this conference ignite within us the passion to lead with purpose, innovate with courage, and transform governance for the betterment of our nation, our country, the Philippines. Thank you very much, and mabuhay tayong lahat. So going straight to business, we will be joined by our Senate President, Francis Joseph Escudero, known as Cheese Escudero to most Filipinos. He was one of the youngest lawmakers to serve in Congress and among its most popular members when he won elections in the House of Representatives and later on in the Senate, where he was voted at the top of the senatorial bracket. A lawyer and a professor of law, Cheese is a product of the University of the Philippines from primary all the way to law school. He passed the Philippine Bar in 1994 and went on to obtain a master's degree in international and comparative law at Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. in 1996. He entered politics in 1998 when he was elected representative of the 1st District of Sorsogon. He served 3 terms, during which he served as Assistant Majority Floor Leader and House Minority Floor Leader. In 2007 and 2013, Senator Cheese ran and was among the top senators that the voters preferred. He was one of the Senate's most productive members. He passed a total of 273 laws and was among the legislators who made sure there were no pending bills unheard in his committees. Senator Cheese was named one of the country's 10 outstanding young men, or the TOYM, for youth leadership, the only Filipino to be named Asia's news network, Asia's Idols, honored as one of the world's young global leaders by the World Economic Forum, and received the Rotary Golden Wheel Award in recognition of his contributions in political governance and the legislative field. In 2019, Senator Cheese ran and eventually won as the governor of Sorsogon. As the provincial chief executive, Senator Cheese pushed for the speedy implementation of numerous projects on health, infrastructure, agriculture, social sciences, tourism, and disaster risk management that immensely improved the lives of his fellow Sorsoganons. In the 2022 national elections, Senator Cheese successfully returned to the Senate, and on May 20, 2024, he became the 25th Senate President of the Philippines. Senator Cheese continues to push for extensive legislation on good governance, education, agriculture, electoral reforms, and justice and human rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Senator Cheese Escudero, Senate President.
Taus-pusong pagbati. Ito po si Cheese Escudero. Sa lahat ng nakikilahok sa CBILLS o Capability Building in Innovative Leadership for Legislative Staff Program, karangalan ko pong makausap kayo ng bahagya at pansamantala. Paumanin, kundi ako personal na makakadalo. Nabasa ko inyong programa at tunay na nakakainggit ang mga kaalamang ibibigay sa inyo sa seminar na ito. Programa kaugnay kung paano natin mapapabuti ang ating trabaho sa lehislasyon at gayon din sa pagdevelop ng mga programa at mga polisiya para sa ating bansa. Nabasa ko na bahagi sa inyong programa ang paggamit ng AI at iba't ibang uri ng AI tools. Importante at mahalaga ito upang hindi tayo mahuli at nang mapagaang din ito ang ating trabaho upang makapagbigay tayo ng madaliang impormasyon kaugnay sa mga dapat at kailangan ng ating mga policymakers at ng ating mga legislators. Dagdag pa siguro dito, sana magamit natin ang AI at iba pang available na teknolohiya para mabigyan tayo ng updated, comprehensive at kompletong listahan at talaan ng lahat ng batas na umiiral na pinasa mula pa nung pag-uukupa ng mga Amerikano sa ating bansa nung Commonwealth period, sa ilalim ng naunang republika at gayon din sa panahon ng martial law kaugnay ng mga PD at mga iyo na inisyo ni dating Pangulong Corazon Aquino. Kasabay na rin ang latest na mga Republic Acts na pinapasa ng Kongreso sa ngayon. Sa totoo lang, wala pa akong nakitang talaan na nagsulat at naglagay ng lahat ng mga amendments ng mga batas kaugnay sa hindi pagkakatugma-tugma dahil sa ika nga General Repealing Clause na madalas pinapasa po ng Kongreso. Naway, gamit ang AI at gamit iba pang mga teknolohiya at tools, ay magkaroon tayo ng komprehensibo at kompletong talaan ng mga batas na naipasa na po natin sa iba't ibang yugto ng ating kasaysayan. Naway isa ito sa inyong maging paksa at naway isa ito sa mga hanapan ng solusyon at kasagutan, hindi lamang para sa mga abogado, hindi lamang para sa mga nagpapakadalubhasa sa batas, pero sa atin na mga policymakers na nandyan sa legislative branch ng ating pamahalaan. Sa muli, binabati ko kayo sa inyong pagtitipon at naway maging matagumpay kayo sa inyong seminar para magkaroon tayong lahat ng karagdagang kaalaman sa trabahong ginagampanan natin para sa bansa at para sa ordinaryong mamamayang Pilipino. Maraming salamat at magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
can navigate a future of responsible and ethical policymaking grounded on innovative governance. At this point, let's seize this moment and take a group photo to commemorate this event. May I ask Deputy Secretary General Go Sison, Deputy Secretary General Pangilinan, President Travago, and Vice President Caluen, together with Comsec Asherto and Comsec Horada, to come up on stage for a photo opportunity. jam-packed event. For this conference, we have an engaging lineup of plenary and parallel sessions along with panel discussions covering two key sub-themes: emerging technologies in public policy and digital security, and the ethical considerations of technology. Additionally, we'll showcase outputs from the policy development and leadership courses of the CBILLS program, emphasizing data-driven policymaking and innovative leadership. Each session will include an open forum to encourage knowledge sharing and foster meaningful exchanges between our resource person and attendees. So as early as now, you may send your burning questions to our resource persons. I am sure you have a lot on your minds, so you may scan the QR code located in the conference primers included in your kits. As for our live viewers from Facebook and YouTube, please type your comments or questions below the live stream so our social media team can consolidate this for the open forum segment. Lastly, we have also invited exhibitors from select organizations who will showcase how they successfully integrated emerging technologies into the flagship programs and services. Feel free to visit their booths during our breaks to learn more about their innovative initiatives. With that, let's not delay further and let's proceed with our first session. To talk about information governance as a foundation for transformative policymaking, let's all welcome Dr. Claire Dennis Mapa, National Statistician and Civil Registrar General of the Philippine Statistics Authority.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with all of you. I'd like to thank my good friend who pushed me a bit to be here, Dr. Maha Rabago, President of the Development Academy of the Philippines. For this morning, I was informed that I'll be handling the whole session. Of course, my talk would be on information governance and data transformation in the Philippines, discussing the experience of the Philippine Statistics Authority. Okay, in the next slide, my outline for discussion. Of course, I hope you know the Philippine Statistics Authority, but just the same, I'd like to spend a bit time on discussing about my agency and what we do, who we are, some of the products and services of the PSA. I'd like to highlight on new products that takes a lot of information, particularly our provincial product accounts, our community-based monitoring system, one of our flagship projects for the PSA, and our birth registration assistance project. Also, I would like to discuss initiatives of the Philippine Statistics Authority on the use of artificial intelligence. We are starting the use of AI in our surveys and censuses. And the PSA in the global context, particularly in the family of national statistical offices under the United Nations. How are we performing relative to our peers? I think more important, because we're talking about information governance, data accessibility policy of our agency. How do we access our data? And lastly, related to digital transformation, I'll be discussing on the national ID system. In the next slide, the PSA is a new agency. Actually, the Philippine Statistical Act that governed the operations of the Philippine Statistics Authority was approved in 2013, so we are just about 11 years. Although we have, of course, predecessor agencies, the idea during the time was to centralize statistical activities in the country. Before the PSA, if you still remember, there were 4 agencies that collect data. We have the National Statistics Office, the biggest agency that collects the data. But we have also the Bureau of Labor and Employment Statistics. This is under the Department of Labor and Employment. we have the Bureau of Agricultural Statistics, which is under the Department of Agriculture, and the National Statistical Coordination Board that reports the GDP, poverty, among others. So during the time, for example, NSO, the National Statistics Office, would collect data on employment, and also the Bureau of Labor and Employment Statistics. And of course, there's a problem with the results most of the time. So the idea was to centralize the activities of the different statistical agency, and we have the Philippine Statistics Authority. So from the four agencies, created the Philippine Statistics Authority to rationalize and promote efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of statistical services, among others, in the country. The Philippine Statistics Authority is relatively a huge agency. In the next slide, we have our different offices. We have, of course, our central office here at East Avenue, but we have offices down to the provincial level. So all provinces will have offices of the PSA. The idea there is that, of course, the field officers will be in charge of collecting the data. The Philippine Statistics Authority is also in charge of the Civil Registration Service, our civil registry document. So that's why we have also a strong link with our local civil registrars, all 1,634. So in a way, our mandate would normally bring us down to the city and municipal level. Just to have a quick discussion so that when you go to the PSA or engage particularly in the data, you would know what office to approach. We have four offices. On the statistical side, that is of course our main business, we have the Sectoral Statistics Office, this first box, that is basically in charge of our surveys and most of our official statistics report. So we have the Macroeconomic Account Service. This is in charge of reporting our GDP, among others. We have the Economic Sector Statistics Service, which is in charge of all economic statistics like inflation, our manufacturing output, among others, and the Social Sector Statistics Service, which is in charge of social indicators like poverty, health, fertility, among others. So the biggest operation of the PSA is actually under the Sectoral Statistics Office. We are also in charge of censuses. So normally, statistical offices in other countries would have the census and the surveys under one. So we have the census and the technical coordination service, which is basically in charge of the censuses. So we have, right now we have 4 major censuses that are being done regularly. Of course, we have the census of population and housing, which is done every 10 years. We just had our last in 2020. And then every mid-decade, we have a census of population, just to update our population count. So we have that in 2025, but this year we are actually doing it in 2024. I will tell you the reason why. We have also our census of agriculture and fisheries. So we collect data on farms, production, workers in agriculture, which is a very important sector. And we have our census of business and industries for establishment. So we have all of this data from various censuses. And then the last bullet there, which is the latest undertaking of the Philippine Statistics Authority, the community-based monitoring system. So this is also a census, but collects more data from the households and individuals, the CBMS. So the CBMS will be done, or was done this year. We started data collection in July. So we visited all the households in the country. It's like a census with more information collected. And it was decided by management to also conduct the mid-decade census because the CBMS is also a census. So we attached there a module for the census count. So that's why we are doing the census of population in 2024 instead of next year, 2025, together with the CBMS to make use of our resources efficiently. So the two boxes, the Sectoral Statistics Office and the Census Office, these are the usual work of national statistical offices. The PSA is quite unique because it has 2 other functions. The third box is on civil registry. So the PSA is also the custodian of all civil registry documents in the country. That would be your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, and death certificate, among others. So it's quite unique. There are very few countries that has civil registry function together with statistics. The idea there is that the civil registry function is the source basically of vital statistics. Your births, your deaths, population projection. So I think that was the idea why it was merged with the statistics operation. However, there's another box there, the last one, which is the national ID system. If you look at the national statistical offices all over the world, there will be like maximum of 10 with the national ID under the statistical offices. And most of these are Pacific Island countries. These are small countries. So in the Philippines, it's quite unique that the National Statistical Office, the Philippine Statistics Authority, handles the statistics, censuses, civil registry, and the national ID system. So normally the national ID system in other countries would belong to the Minister of Justice. The civil registry would belong to the Minister of Interior. But here, we have all of this. Now, what will be the implication? It means that the PSA has all your data. I'm not kidding. We have your data. We have about 90 million demographic and biometric information under the national ID. We have about 180 million information under our civil registry system. And at the end of this year, we will have about 110 million information, the latest one, from our community-based monitoring system and the census. So all in all, at the end of the year, we will have about close to 400 million records of individuals. They are actually stored in different data centers because under the law, we should not be able to merge all of them. But that's the idea. There is harmonization, but this is quite unique for PSA. As I've said, in other countries, these are all lodged in the different agencies. In the next slide, so these are our the laws that provides mandate to the Philippine Statistics Authority. The first one, when I joined the PSA as the national statistician in 2019, I was just studying the Philippine Statistical Act of 2013. During that time, the Philippine Identification System Act was quite new. That is the national ID system. And then in 2020, we have the community-based monitoring system. And just early this year, another law was approved on the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System, or the PENCAS Act. This PENCAS, in the macroeconomic account service, we are also reporting not just economic activities, but also we are measuring environmental contribution to the economy. How big is our forest land? What is the value? What's the value of water, for example? So under the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting Act, the PENCAS, we will value the contribution of natural resources on the economy and deduct any negative impact of economic activity in the GDP. So the idea is that at the end of, once we fill this up, about 2030, we will have our natural capital accounting adjusted GDP. We are adjusting it for negative impact on the environment, natural resources, and also, of course, add the contribution of natural resources. So these are the different laws that govern operation of the Philippine Statistics Authority. In the next slide, we have our mandates. Of course, we are the central authority in the country for official statistics. We collect most of the data in the country. We have about, just for the information of everyone, we have about 67 designated statistical activities every year in the country. 67 statistical activities. So these are collection of data from prices to report inflation, labor market statistics, for example. These are the usual reports. So all of this, 67. PSA handles 48 of these activities. So we are handling actually about 72% of all data collection of the government in the country. The 19 other statistical activities, most of these are admin-based statistical activities. A lot of these are lodged at the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. You know, banks will report to them some data on banking. So all in all, the PSA really collect and manage data from different statistical activities. So 48 out of 67 statistical activities that are being done regularly. So we are in charge of production of official statistics, general purpose statistics, civil registration service, and as I mentioned, and of course, the national ID system. In the next slide, some of our mandates, of course, we have the censuses and surveys. We report sectoral statistics. We have reports on economy, GDP, for example. We report on agricultural sector. We report on the social sector. We have the community-based monitoring system. I'll touch a bit on that, which is our latest project. We have also administrative recording system, like your vital statistics, and the compilation of the national accounts, the overall production, the overall expenditure of the country on a yearly basis or quarterly basis. So these are activities or mandates of the Philippine Statistics Authority. In the next slide, I'm highlighting some of the products and services of the PSA. So we have the first one under the national account. So this is our GDP. We report this on a quarterly basis and an annual basis. So we have GDP quarterly and annually at the national level. We have annual GDP at the regional level. So we can measure our production and expenditure by region. We have also, this year, we will complete the national accounts, that's the GDP of the provinces and highly urbanized cities. So we will be reporting GDP of 82 provinces and 33 highly urbanized cities. So you will know what's the contribution of, let's say, a highly urbanized city like Mandaluyong or Makati in the entire GDP. You will also know by next month which province or highly urbanized city reach about 1 trillion as their total production. So these are additional products that we are reporting. We are, of course, in charge of the establishment survey, so we have a lot of surveys for firms. We have one big census, which is the census of Philippine business and industry, and we have the annual survey of Philippine business and industry. These are data that we collect from different establishments all over the country. The last time I checked, there are about 1.5 million establishments that are registered under our annual survey of Philippine business and industries. So these are actually reports that are input to a lot of our official statistics, most of which is the GDP estimation. We have, of course, a lot of household-based surveys. So I hope, one of you is a respondent. And when you're visited by our data collector, you will participate in the survey of the PSA. So a lot of household surveys are being conducted. One that is running now is the 2024 Census of Population and Community-Based Monitoring System. We also started the functional literacy survey, which is a very important input to our policies related to education. So these are some of the surveys that are household-based. We have administrative-based survey. In other countries, admin-based surveys are becoming very strong as alternative to the usual visits of data collectors. So we have also a number of admin-based survey. Of course, our civil registration service. So those are our data collection. Within PSA, because we talk about data governance, we have also an independent service that is in charge of standard classification system. So before we conduct a survey, for example, or a census, there is an independent team that is scrutinizing our sampling design, whether that would provide accurate estimates, our questionnaire, and other aspect of our operations. Under the Philippine Statistical Act, government agencies that plan to conduct their own surveys with fund coming from the national government should ask for a survey clearance from the Philippine Statistics Authority. So you cannot, if you are a government agency, for example, and you want to collect data for official reporting, it will not be considered as an official statistics without the survey clearance from the Philippine Statistics Authority. And that is one of the functions of our standard service, the survey clearance and the review system. We are also in charge of statistical frameworks and indicator systems. So this is our link to, for example, international organizations like the UN. So one example here is the SDGs. So you have these indicators for our sustainable development goals, and how do you measure this in the context of the Philippines, and that passes through our statistical frameworks and indicator system. And of course, we have our national ID. The last three bullets are how the data are being or can be accessed from the Philippine Statistics Authority by researchers, by members of the academic community, students, among others. So we have three ways of accessing our data. We have our OpenStat. You know, the PSA is very proud of open statistics. So our data are actually, if there are data that are very quick, you want to get a time series, you can just download it from our OpenStat. No permission. If you want unit data, so for example, if you want anonymized data set from our family income and expenditure survey or the labor force survey for your research, for your study, then you can go to our data archive, our PISADA. So you will just be asked what's the purpose of that particular study, and usually you will get access to the unit data set, meaning individual level data or household level data, anonymized data set. And the last one is our data enclave. If you want to study, for example, firms, if you're interested in looking at how establishments in manufacturing would release or would issue or produce their products, whether this is for domestic or exports, this available data at the establishment level can be generated from our data enclave. This one, we cannot release it to the researchers because the firm levels, even if you anonymize it from the different indicators, you can identify the firms. There are really big firms that you can identify utilizing certain indicators. So what you will do, and a lot of researchers are doing this, you can visit our data enclave. Data enclave. It's like a data laboratory. And we have this at our PSA headquarters in East Avenue. And we have also data enclave because, of course, at PSA we don't want inequality of access to data, so we have data enclave at the regional offices. So each region will have data enclave. You can access data there, particularly all the data sets actually of the PSA can be accessed from the data enclave, but the reason people would go to the data enclave is that they want to look at data from the establishments. So those are the three. If this is a simple data set, you have the OpenStat. You can just get the time series. If you want unit data from households, most of these are household data set, you can just send an email, ask permission, you will be asked what's the use of the data, and you will be provided with access. But if it is firm level data, you will have to access that from our data enclave. So those are the ways of engaging or accessing data from the Philippine Statistics Authority. In the next slide, I'd just like to highlight a bit some of our products, particularly these are the latest releases. The first one, as I mentioned, is the provincial product accounts. You're familiar with our GDP. We are reporting it on a quarterly basis. We will report the GDP for the third quarter of 2024 on November 7th. That's the release of the GDP. By the way, at the Philippine Statistics Authority, because we are transparent on our reports, we have already what we call an advance release calendar. Every January, we release the date of the releases of all of our official statistics so that stakeholders are aware when the data will be released. So normally it's released 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. on that date, inflation, for example, will be released on that particular date. The GDP is usually released at 10 a.m. So we will release this third quarter, 10 a.m. on November 7th. Now, we have the national GDP. We release this on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. We also have the regional GDP. So all the regions, we would report the production, and we report only per year. As I mentioned a while ago, we are reporting also the GDP of a province and highly urbanized cities. So that is what we call the provincial product accounts. So we started this activity in 2021 because, of course, why go to the province or to the highly urbanized cities? Basically, the demand of local chief executives. They want to measure performance of their economy. So in 2021, I asked my team, can we estimate the GDP of a province? What are the data requirements in estimating GDP of a province or highly urbanized cities? So we assess the data requirement. Of course, during the time, some cities, some provinces, they have more local level data that they would share to PSA. In some other provinces, a bit behind. So this is a 5-year program. We started with about 14 provinces and highly urbanized cities in 2021, adding more cities, more provinces per year, and of course, doing capacity building to the LGUs, engaging their business registry about data sharing. And this year, 2024, we are completing all highly urbanized cities and provinces. And by 2025, it's now part of our official report. All the provinces and highly urbanized cities, we have reasonably accurate estimates of their contribution to the economy. So that is the provincial product account. In the next slide, we have a dashboard. We have a separate dashboard for the provincial product account. If you want to check your city or province in terms of its contribution to the regional and to the national GDP, you have that. The 2024 report will be released starting November for the provinces. So usually we have data dissemination in the provinces and highly urbanized cities to engage the local chief executives about the performance of their economy. So that is a provincial product account. So you might ask, which province or city, for example, already reached the 1 trillion economy? So we have a number of provinces and cities wherein the size of their economy is already 1 trillion. In the next slide, we also have what we call a satellite account. So a satellite account is a specific sector in our economy, and we measure it and its contribution to the GDP. So normally, we look at sectors in the economy that are promising, contributes more to jobs, and we estimate the size of this sector via the satellite accounts. So the first satellite account that we produce is the tourism satellite account. So if you've heard about the tourism satellite account. So I think the tourism satellite account is about 10 years already. Every year, we estimate what is the size of the tourism industry with respect to the overall GDP. So there are two important information that you will get from the satellite account: the size of that sector relative to GDP and the number of workers that are engaged in that sector. So the more mature one is the tourism satellite account. So you might ask, how are we able to identify the employment or employed persons and the contribution in this sector? If you note in the classification, in the slide wherein I showed the classification system, so we have this classification system wherein we classify all the industries. So in the country, we have what we call the Philippine Standard Industry Classification, the PISIC. And we have also a standard for occupation, the Philippine Standard Occupation Code, the PISOC. So the PISIC and the PISOC, these are codes. We can identify the particular sector of this particular industry and the workers employed. So that is the key in classifying. So we have the tourism satellite accounts. We also report the digital satellite account. What is the contribution of the digital sector, the ICT, in the economy? And the latest one that we produced 3 years ago because of a law that was passed, the creative sector or creative economy satellite account. So we are estimating what is the contribution of the creative economy in the entire overall GDP. So in the latest report, this is last year, here we have in 2023 about 1.72 trillion. That is the entire amount contribution of the creative sector, 1.72 trillion. And this is about 7.1% of our GDP. The creative sector is divided by industry share. The biggest one in this slide, 31.5%, is what we refer to as the symbols and images and other related activities. So this is part of that Philippine Standard Industry Classification. So you have about 9 subsectors here under the creative industry. So we are able to measure one particular industry, its contribution to the GDP and the number of jobs that it contributes to the overall economy. So for the satellite account, so far the PSA reported on an annual basis, the tourism satellite accounts, the digital economy satellite account, and the last one is the creative economy satellite account. The next slide is on the community-based monitoring system. So this is latest undertaking of the Philippine Statistics Authority. The CBMS has been here for quite some time. Although the first group that conducted the CBMS are the members of the academic community. So these are data collected from the local government units. So before we collect data from different LGUs, LGUs that would want to participate. So the community-based monitoring system in the next slide, there are 3 major objectives. So the first one, the intention of the CBMS is for local level data, to provide the local government units with data that they can use for planning. So this is an economic and social tool for use in the formulation and implementation of poverty alleviation and development programs that are specific, targeted, and responsive to the basic needs of each sector in the community. So this is actually LGU run, the CBMS. The LGU before can identify what are the important indicators that will be collected for that particular LGU. So the first objective is really local level. In 2020, the Community-Based Monitoring System Act was enacted, and the idea there is to provide a database at the national level that will be used for targeting beneficiaries in social protection program. We have already a list, we have already a data set for targeting beneficiaries under the social protection program. And this is being managed before by the DSWD, the listahanan. So we have 3 rounds of data collection for social protection beneficiaries, particularly the 4Ps, expanded to cover other programs of the national government. So we have the Listahanan 1, the Listahanan 2, and the Listahanan 3. The Listahanan 3, the last one that was conducted by the DSWD, happened in 2019. So every so often, this list is being updated. And the law in 2020, the Community-Based Monitoring System Act, stated that the CBMS will now be the main source of the list that will be used for social protection programs of the government. So that's why we have it at the national level also. So the CBMS will now be utilized both by the local government units, the chief executive for planning, at the same time by the national government for generation and updating of the households, individuals that would be targeted for social protection programs. So that is now under the Philippine Statistics Authority. So for 2024, we have the President instructed the PSA to conduct the community-based monitoring system because the listahanan, the one that is being utilized, was collected in 2019, pre-COVID. So we really have to update the list, situation, socioeconomic characteristics of persons that are targeted for social protection. So moving forward, the PSA will now be handling that particular data. So the CBMS will be collected by the PSA. Our mother agency, the National Economic and Development Authority, will perform what we call a proxy means test. You know, if you've heard of that proxy means test, this is a process of identifying which household will be included in social protection programs. So that's part of NEDA. And then this will be given to the DSWD as part of their list of possible beneficiaries. Of course, normally they would check for conditionalities. So it is now 3 different agencies that are handling this. Before it's DSWD. DSWD collects the data, DSWD performs the targeting process, and DSWD manages the targeting itself. Now, data collection is handled by PSA. The one that will process the data for targeting would be NEDA, and the one that would implement it is DSWD. So I think that's a better approach, no? Because we have now 3 different independent agencies. So that is the latest activity of the Philippine Statistics Authority. We started our data collection in last July 15. Our target is about 27.5 million households. That's the number of housing units, estimate housing units with persons in 2024. And as of last Friday, PSA was able to cover about 80% of this. We're still on the field. We got we encountered slowdown because of the typhoon. We're not able to go to a lot of areas because of the recent 3 typhoons. But we will be finishing, the PSA will finish the data collection by end of the year. So that's the community-based monitoring system. Now, given that we have data from the CBMS, of course, this is for local level planning and targeting at the national level, because we're statisticians, the data is there. We also identified that there are local level indicators for our SDGs that can be collected from the community-based monitoring system. In fact, the CBMS, we are able to identify 21 SDG indicators. So we should be able to report SDG indicators down to the barangay level, 21 of them. So before, we report only SDG indicators at the national level. But because of the CBMS, 21 of these SDG indicators can now be reported at the village barangay level. Another aspect of the CBMS is the multidimensional poverty index. The PSA reports a poverty incidence using what we call an income base. How much income you need so that you will not be considered as a poor household. But there are non-income indicators, and that is part of what we call the MPI, the Multidimensional Poverty Index. Non-income indicators, whether you have a house, you have water, access to water, education, you have job, for example. So we have 16 non-income indicators. And this can be collected, again, through the CBMS. So in addition to the data that will be utilized by the LGU for local level, In addition to the data that will be utilized by the national government agencies for targeting, we can also generate two very important sets of indicators from the community-based monitoring system that we can use to assess our progress for development. And these are the SDG indicators and the multi-dimensional poverty index. So we feel that the community-based monitoring system, at least from the data point of view, the data that can be utilized for policy, it's like a game changer. In the discussion at the UN National Statistical Offices, the Philippines is quite ahead of all other countries because we conducted the CBMS covering the entire country in 2024. By the way, in 2022, we already conducted the community-based monitoring system covering about 635 local government units, mostly from the 6th class, 5th class, and 4th class cities and municipalities. The funding during that time was, of course, a challenge, but for 2024, because of the need to update the list of beneficiaries, the President provided funding for the nationwide conduct of the community-based monitoring system. The data will be available, of course, for other agencies, other researchers, anonymized once we are able to clean them up, and it should be ready by the first quarter of next year. Some of the indicators that we need or we can get from the community-based monitoring system, I'd just like to highlight in this slide. So I mentioned we are able to identify 21 indicators for SDG, 6 indicators under SDG 1, 1 indicator under SDG 2, 1 under SDG 5, and others. So we have SDG 17, 1 indicator. So these are all available at the barangay level. The more interesting, of course, are the data from the households coming from the CBMS for local level planning. In the 2022 CBMS, because we completed the data, the data collection, data analysis for 2022, particularly for those that participated. In the next slide, these are some of the important indicators. We asked, for example, in the CBMS, we have this indirect measure of food insecurity. Food insecurity, whether you are food insecure at the household level. There were 8 questions. This is one of them. The percentage of households that are worried they do not have enough food to eat at least once in the past 12 months due to lack of resources. This report is under the barangays of the municipality of Calamansig in Sultan Kudarat. That's a mountainous area in Sultan Kudarat. We presented this to the mayor. And while the total for the entire municipality in 2022, about 38.6% of them felt that they are food insecure. You will notice that there are a lot of barangays a number of barangays with a higher number. In particular, you have Barangay Sabanal. So the mayor can now, the local chief executive can now use this data to identify which barangay needs intervention. In the next slide, we also look at the percentage of population 3 to 24 years currently attending school by sex, again in the same municipality. The blue one is male, the pink one is female, and you will see the age wherein the male or female would drop out of school. And in this case, the male students would normally drop out at an early age in that particular municipality. So a lot, all municipalities that participate in the community-based monitoring system will have this data. Reason for dropping out in the next slide. For male, lack of personal interest under the municipality of Calamansig, Sultan Kudarat, marriage. For female, it's marriage, like half of them. 48.9%. And then you have family matters, lack of personal interest. So all of these are part of the community-based monitoring system data, down to the barangay level. So that's the power of the community-based monitoring system. In the next slide, we have also the percentage of households under the same municipality by barangay with no toilet facility. And you can see that while the average for the entire municipality is just 18%, there is one barangay Datu Ito Andong, wherein 80% of the household don't have a toilet facility. So again, the information is critical for intervention by the local chief executive. So normally, before they get the final report, there are discussions and interventions even before we made presentation are already being done. So this is how disaggregated the data from the community-based monitoring system will be available, and this will be really important for policy planning and policy making at the local level. In the next slide, we also we geotag households. We use technology, we geotag households, we can identify, for example, in this example, households with PWD, where they are. So we have a lot of this information because we geotag households. These are under the same municipality of Calamansi. In the next slide, we also identify their proximity to health centers. Because we don't only geotag households, we also geotag barangay and city municipality facilities, schools, health centers, and so on. So we can identify how many are far, how many are near, where is the evacuation area, for example. It's part of the data that were collected. So this is, in addition to the data that we have from the household level, this is also important for geotagging. So in 2024, in the next slide, 2024, the CBMS, we are doing the census of population and the community-based monitoring system. These are some of the major objectives at the end of the year. We will have an updated population statistics at the local and national level. So that is important for LGU for their national tax allocation. We will have an updated list of beneficiaries for social protection program of the government. And we will have data that would help local government units create evidence-based projects and programs for their constituents. So these are major important objectives of the community-based monitoring system, and the data will be available by end of the year. Next slide. I will quickly discuss also, because we are in charge of civil registry, so I have to mention something about birth registration. This is we collect data on birth registration from censuses. So this is the percentage of our countrymen with birth registration. In 2020, about 96.5% of all Filipinos, 109 million of them, have birth registration. That's quite high. So you will notice that it's increasing. So we are progressing on the birth registration. But the flip side is 3.5% still don't have birth registration. And in 2020, we counted that there were about 109 million. That's 3.8 million. So 3.8 million Filipinos don't have birth registration last census count as of September 1, 2020. We will have an updated report because, as I mentioned, we conducted the census this year. So we will have an updated report in 2024. My reading is that it's higher. Most probably we're higher, about 98% already. But quite far from our target, which is 99.5. That's our mandate or our target for the civil registration and vital statistics decade. But we will be progressing towards most probably more than 98%. So, because we know where they are, the census has barangay data. So we developed this, next slide. We developed this birth registration assistance project. We look at in the next slide. We try to identify who are those without birth registration. Because birth registration is important. For us with birth registration, it's easy to just go to a civil registry office. We have 71 offices all over the country, and then request for your birth registration. Sometimes we just call our online services, your birth certificate will be delivered to you. But the problem is, how about those without birth registration? We have to register them first. And we look at, most of these are IPs, Muslim Filipinos, of course, the poorest sector of our society. So we developed this birth registration assistance project. We try to find them, the 3.8 million. Because we know the data from the census, which barangay has the highest number of individuals without birth registration. So we started this activity in 2022, and in the next slide, we were able to identify 1.48 million, 1.5 million. The number is 3.8. 1.5 million went to our tables in all barangays telling us, I don't have a birth certificate. And 247, after checking our database, 247,000 of them apparently have birth certificate on record. You know, sometimes, most probably their parent, their mother, failed to inform them that they were registered in another municipality. So that's a common problem. You thought that, let's say, myself, say I was born in Bacolod City, so my thinking is that my birth certificate is there, but perhaps it was registered in Iloilo City, another province. So only when we checked the database that we found out 247,000 of them, you have actually birth certificate on record. You just have to request for it. But 1.19 million don't have out of the 1.5. And through this birth registration assistance project, we were able to provide close to 500,000, 416,000 new registration. So that's why I said most probably our number increased already to 98% because we have provided new registration. We were able to identify 416,000 of them and provided the birth certificate. Now the remainder, because there's quite some problem with birth registration. The process itself is not easy, particularly if you are living in an area where you were not born. So for example, if you're born in Mindanao, say in Sultan Kudarat, in Calamansig, but you are now residing in Quezon City, your registration will have to be registered in Calamansig. That's the rule. So the process of coordinating distance, that is a problem. But all of this remaining unregistered are being processed. It just takes a bit of time. And we are confident that we will clear all of this by end of this year or the latest first quarter. And then with the new census, 2024, we will update, we will try to find again those without birth registration. I'm sure because of the COVID pandemic, our local civil registry offices closed, so we have some additional individuals without birth registration. But the idea is that we are able to find them, utilizing our data. So this is really using data, identify individuals that needs assistance. Because normally they don't go to the city hall or municipal hall, primarily because they don't have resources. They live in very far barangays, so we have to bring local civil registrar and go to this barangay to identify those individuals without birth certificate. So those are the projects, some of the projects of the Philippine Statistics Authority. We have data on this, and we hope that some of these things would interest you. In the next slide, we also have an initiative on the use of AI, particularly on agricultural and fisheries surveys. You know, our process is still, going to the farm and ask the farmer, the operator, the area land planted by palay, what's the production. And we feel that we have to improve in this initiative. Our census of agriculture and fisheries was conducted last year, and I told my team in the next round of the census we should use satellite facilities already. So we started our initiative, a pilot, on what we call the Artificial Intelligence for Census of Agriculture and Fisheries, or AI for CAP project. This is a joint collaboration between the DOST, particularly their Advanced Science and Technology Institute, the DOST-AST, and the Philippine Statistics Authority. Right now, we are engaging the Philippine Satellite Agency to also help us out. So the idea is to detect objects for crops and fish ponds, to detect specific crops from satellite images, try to use AI, modeling, predicting, identify whether that is really a coconut from ground truthing, because we have enumerators covering, and check whether this is visible. So we did this for the Census of Agriculture and Fisheries on certain crops. In the next slide, this is a collaboration from the DOST, Department of Science and Technology, as is the Advanced Science Technology Institute. So they provide us with access to satellite images. They provide us with access to computing and archiving research environment. This requires a lot of resources on the software side, and of course capacity development. So these are the contribution. Access to satellite images, how to clean it, the resources, and training. In the next slide, our contribution, we have a technical support staff, we have ICT equipment, and we check on the ground whether that is really a palay or a land planted by palay. Palay is quite tricky because it's grass from the satellite. So at first there is a problem because palay from a top view is grass. So some of the areas planted, with grass were considered. So that's why ground truthing is important to validate it. In the next slide, so these are the areas, development of the model. So we collect data from satellite through the DOST, and then after that, there is correction, calibration of the images. We try to clean it using their software. And then you have digitalization of features of interest, quality checking, and then you have the AI model. In this case, we use the neural network models to make prediction. And in the last two, next, can you click it? And one more, yes, so that's prediction. So after the model, we predict, and then we check on the ground. So we send our data collector, check whether that is really coconut, that is mango, that is palay, and try to measure it, and then try to compare with the predicted model. So if the error is large, you have to calibrate your model, and so on. So that's the process. But we were able to identify certain crops wherein this satellite images and the AI is really useful. And those are in the next slides, very quickly. So we have a fish pond, because we are doing the fisheries also. Fish pond is tricky for smaller areas. For big areas, it's quite useful. So we have this fish pond, and the ground truthing, the prediction, we went to Hagonoy, Bulacan to test the data, whether that is really the area. In the next slide, okay, those are the fish pond from the satellite images and those in the ground truthing. Next, can you just click it? Okay, we have also fish pens, and we use areas in Laguna for our prediction. Next, I just finished this fish cage. So this one is a bit tricky, smaller size. Smaller size. But we did this in Bolinao, Pangasinan. The next slide. Okay, these are the crops. Those are the fisheries. So we have crops like banana in Bataan. So those are areas wherein we get data and from satellite images, and we also did ground truthing to compare. Okay, next, mango. Okay, in Santa Maria, Bulacan. So those are the images wherein the satellite identified as mango. And then the next one is coconut. It seems coconut is easier to detect because of distance of the trees. The technical staff mentioned that to me. So in coconut, our accuracy rate is quite high for coconut trees. Next. I'm sorry, previous. So these are some of the crops that are estimated using AI under our 2022 Census of Agriculture and Fisheries. I'll ask for a few minutes. I'll just have two more slides just to inform you how is PSA, our National Statistics Office, compared to other national statistical offices that are conducting also this type of activity. In the next slide, the statistical system, the national statistical system all over the country is being rated by what we call a statistical performance indicator, SPI. And In 2022, that's the last year, wherein the World Bank, by the way, the World Bank is the one conducting this SPI, collecting data for the SPI. I'm happy to note that we are 45th out of 186 economies. So we are comparable with the upper middle income and the highly developed economies, ranked 45 out of 186. So we are in the upper quartile of the data. In ASEAN region, in our region, we're second next to Singapore. So the performance of the National Statistics Office are being rated under 5 pillars, and we are a bit low compared to Singapore on pillar 5. I'll just highlight that, and that is data infrastructure, which is related to our discussion. So data infrastructure was identified for further development, wherein the country can really increase its rating. We are high. You will notice that red line there, wherein we are 100%. That's pillar 1 on data use. We are really high on uses because we do, as I mentioned, we do a lot of surveys, censuses, and we bring this to our policymakers, to our stakeholders. Singapore has some limit here because of the size of the population size. Now, we have a lot of surveys, so we are a bit high in data use. But our area wherein we need to improve a lot would be data infrastructure. In the next slide, we are also high in rank for open data. Open data. The PSA is following this idea of data being available to the stakeholders. So the Philippines ranked 36 out of 195 countries in the 2022 open data inventory. In other words, the data from the PSA, from the National Statistical Agencies, National Statistical System are available. So the Philippines in ASEAN ranked 3rd behind Singapore and Indonesia for Southeast Asia under open data governance. There's a need to expand range of data available in certain areas that are underrepresented, and in particular, the Oden report mentioned data availability under Open Data Watch for environment, agriculture, and health statistics. So there are still some areas wherein we need to improve on the openness of our data that are being collected, but being ranked 36 out of 195 countries is already a very good performance for our open data. So in a way, what I'm saying is that your national statistical system, headed by the Philippine Statistics Authority, the operation is comparable despite the mandate, additional mandate that are not available in other national statistical offices, and we are comparable in terms of performance with upper middle income economies and developed economies. I'll stop here. I still have more slides, but I will give floor for discussions and clarifications on my report. Thank you very much. Magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
in the Southeast Asian region, right? Of course, commend to our national statistician, Dennis Mapa. My question is on the national income accounts that incorporates the natural capital, right? So, meaning to, I know that PSA have already started this initiative several years back. But is there like a regular measurement? Because it's difficult to do the natural capital accounting system. And in doing that, is PSA also coming out with a measure that incorporates the natural capital, recognizing that it's an input that would also depreciate and therefore coming up with a green national accounting?
Yes, thank you very much. We have regular reports under our national income accounts, what we call the environmental accounts. So these are measuring the value of some environmental, using the usual system of environmental accounting of the UN, following how we measure the GDP. Certain sectors in terms of our natural resources. So we regularly report the mineral accounts, non-metallic mineral accounts. We have water, land, timber. These are some. What we will do is we are trying to come up with a national estimate of this, because in certain accounts, only regions with that particular resources, for example, would normally report. So that is what is being done. We have certain sectors of the environment wherein we have regular reports. There are certain sectors wherein regional offices would only report. Like for example, the land, some regions in North Luzon and Mindanao would report it on a regular basis, but not yet at the national level. So these are the things that we will do before we can proceed to that natural capital adjusted GDP. The timetable, by the way, PSA is not the only agency involved here. We are the one doing the accounting, but of course, we need inputs from the DNR because they supply us with the data, and guidance from our mother agency, the National Economic and Development Authority. We provided this roadmap to the natural capital accounting adjusted GDP, and based on our roadmap, it should be in 2030. So between now and 2030, that's learning, trying to generate all the data, and by 2030, we will have a pilot estimate based on our agreed roadmap. Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? Sir?
Mr. Lumantao from DEP, sir. Originally, my question was about rate of utilization. No? But I saw that we are ranked high in terms of utilization. My question probably is, do you think there are still areas that we can improve, no, in terms of utilization of the very rich data that PSA has? And what do you think are the data sets that you think are still needs to be maximized in terms of utilization?
Yeah, thank you. We have, right now, we have a huge utilization. I have a slide, for example, on because we track also those institutions that are doing requests from us. And in 2023, close to 10,000 different institutions actually, or different users from various institutions made requests for data from us. Most of this are from the academic community, from the researchers, students. What I noted though is that a lot of this are household data, household-based data. In terms of really utilizing the richness of the data, it seems that we are a bit low on establishment-based data. Perhaps the reason for that is household-based data. Remember, I mentioned there are three ways of accessing data from the PSA. First is the ECS is the OpenStat, if you just want time series, some summary statistics. The other one is on our archive, data archive, the PISADA, wherein you just send a request. These are usually household data that are anonymized and then provided to you, whether a file or a link. The third one is the firm, establishment-based data. This is the one that you will have to access through our data archive.
and the data enclave, I mean, and these are at the offices of the PSA. So in terms of uses, this is the one that is a bit low, and the richness of the data here is tremendous. So you can have, for example, link data from trade, export, imports, and then what's their production if they are in the manufacturing, industry, agri sector. So all of this are available at our data enclave. But the number of users, admittedly, is not that huge. So in terms of utilization, this is one area wherein we can still have more users. And we are open always. It's just some sort of permission, no, from myself. And normally the purpose, and I will just provide that assurance that you can use the data. We are also, so one challenge here that are raised to me by researchers, that of course they will have to go to the office of the PSA. We have a very nice headquarters. We have a nice data laboratory there where you can run your model. But yeah, I'm thinking about having this virtual data enclave that you can access data online. But we are looking at some aspect of data privacy. So these are things that I'm also throwing to my IT team on how they can solve it. Perhaps if this will be available, say virtually, that would increase the uses. But for now, that is one area wherein we can really improve further utilization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mapa. So in relation to that question, in terms of utilization, this is a question online. So how can we access and maximize the use of available data for effective policy making, especially for those people in the Congress?
Okay, as I've mentioned, we are very open. You have 3 ways of accessing this. We also have, if you are, for example, an academic institution wherein there are a lot of users, we also have this mechanism wherein we provide or we sign a memorandum agreement, and then we provide you with the data set. Normally in one of your offices there. Maha started this actually in Ateneo when she was still a professor at Ateneo. We provide data at the Rizal Library. So all students of Ateneo will just access the data through the Rizal Library. So they don't have to go to PSA or even ask permission from PSA. What we require is just to log who are the users so that we can report it also. So this is one mechanism. So if you are an institution, for example, we can enter into some memorandum agreement wherein you will have access to the data of the PSA, and then we update it regularly as soon as the data is available, subject, of course, to the usual provisions of our Data Privacy Act. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have another question from the floor? Okay, if none, I'm going to read again another question from our online. So, what recent innovations have you implemented in the conduct of your different census? Has it significantly decreased the time needed to complete it? And what other methods do you plan to utilize?
Yeah, that is a very good question. As I mentioned, our theme, of course, my topic is on digital transformation. When I entered the PSA in 2019, the first thing that I did is really to make sure that we shift to the use of technology in terms of our data capture. Of course, the usual old process is the paper and pen, and then we have to encode it and check it and so on. So this really prolongs the process from data collection to reporting and data access. So I pushed my team in 2021, a major survey, the Family Income and Expenditure Survey. We don't have enough tablets, because of course you have to use tablets during the time. We don't have enough tablets, but I asked them, we will sequester all available tablets from the field offices just to show that we can work with this huge survey, which is the Family Income and Expenditure Survey, and reported. And what happened is that, of course, data collection is shortened a bit. What will be saved actually is the data validation, because the system has, you can program data validation there. Based on the usual reporting, we were able to save about 4 months from data collection to reporting. And that push, in a way, PSA to really embrace the use of technology. In this 2024 Census of Population and Community-Based Monitoring System, we are all utilizing copy, except for certain areas wherein copy is not really feasible. DBM provided us with budget that we were able to procure enough tablets for our data collectors and team supervisors. So moving forward, that's one. A reduction of 3 to 4 months in the cycle from data collection to reporting is really welcome. And the other one, as I mentioned to you, in terms of censuses, particularly for agriculture, we are already embarking on the use of satellite images, and that is our AI for COP. And my instruction here is that by the next round of the Census of Agriculture, we should have more of this technology, satellite images, rather than the usual process of doing surveys. Surveys will still be there, but of course we have to make use of technology. The other area we're in, I think this is the way moving forward, strengthening the admin-based data. Strengthening admin-based data. There will be a point wherein people will most probably don't participate in surveys anymore, so admin-based. But of course, we have to tweak a bit our statistical laws to make sure that admin is an important mechanism for data collection. So these are, I think, 3 things that would make changes in the operation of a National Statistical Office. Thank you.
For our next question, given the recent news that thousands of foreigners illegally secured birth certificates, including around 1,200 falsified certificates from the local service register in Davao del Sur in July 24, it becomes crucial to address the vulnerabilities in the civil registry system. What specific measures can be implemented to enhance the integrity and security of civil registry processes in the Philippines?
Okay, thank you for that question. That is a very important question, and I think the stakeholders should know what the PSA is doing, because we are the custodian of civil registry documents. First is that the idea of late registration. I did mention that there are 3.8 million individuals in 2020 that don't have birth certificates. The process of late registration, because this is the mechanism wherein non-Filipinos were able to get birth certificate, the late registration. This is actually common in the country, late registration. Every year, about 900,000 to 1 million persons would be registered late. The definition of late registration under the civil registry law is that if you are born and you are not able to register 30 days after, you are considered a late registrant. So this is quite common. So we checked the data, because we have the database. We checked the data, and from 2010, we started with 2010. From 2010 to 2023, there were about more than 13 million late registrants. So that's one. Moving forward, what we did, 2 things. We strengthened a bit our requirements for late registration. Of course, this will have also impact on Filipinos that are vulnerable, because every time you add another requirement, that creates another hurdle for them. But we need to do this, so we look at some requirements. One of this is that if you are a late registrant, we need simultaneous registration to the national ID system. The reason for that is that you have to appear, because we will collect your biometric data. A common, I checked the characteristics of non-Filipinos. that entered our civil registry system by a late registration, a lot of them did not appear at the local civil registrar. They just sent the document. So requiring registration through the national ID is that you have to appear because you have to collect your biometric. So that's one. And there's an interview. So we would know, at least our registration officer would know whether you can speak Filipino or the local language. So these are not foolproof, but at least you have now a way of checking. So we increased we added more. Now what will happen to those that are already in the system? So what's good about it is that if you're in the system, your data is there, we can identify. And out of this 13 million from 2010 to 2023, we created a model. If we can use an AI for CUF, we can identify a model that would give you probability that most probably this is a fraudulent late registration. So that is what we did. And we were able to identify red flag some out of the 13 million. And that is what the field officers are doing now, doing complete audit on the documents that were submitted. So those that enter the system, we can identify those potential fraudulent documents. And that is what the PSA is doing. So moving forward, we strengthen it and cleaning what were submitted on our records, using our IT and our statisticians, similar to what we did for AI for CAF. Thank you.
Floor.
Statement or answer a while ago. What are the measures when you found out that there are fraudulent registration? Are there mechanisms that PSA conduct? Like, do you file court cases?
Yes.
And who represent the PSA in handling these cases?
Okay, those that, well, first we did investigation. At the PSA, we have a fraud management division that handles this. And we identified already certain documents that are considered as fraudulent documents. So the first thing that we did is to block the document from our system. So the person can no longer access it, can no longer request. And then second is that we file cancellation with the help of our OSG. So that's a process. And of course, sharing this with other government agencies so that they know that these individuals actually carried birth certificate in particular that are considered as fraudulent. So we share this with our DFA, our Bureau of Immigration, and law enforcement agencies. So we are constantly coordinating with different agencies, particularly the Bureau of Immigration, so that we can identify and take action on this individual. So far, we have identified about 1,600 individuals that, or with submitted birth certificate that are considered as fraudulent. And we are checking for more because, as I've said, from 2010 to 2023, about 13 million individuals submitted birth certificate by the late registration. Majority of them are Filipinos, but there are a number that are red flag based on our model that can be considered as fraudulent documents. So we are doing the audit down to the local CBILLS registrars. Thank you.
Maybe, sir, as a last question and as your closing, okay, so let's just entertain this last one question.
nobody is asking this because, okay, our office uses your data a lot. No? In fact, we coordinate with you for the small area estimates. So, and often we are being asked for district level data. Can you do that now with CBMS and AI?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I think the limitation with the previous surveys before CBMS is that the domain is usually, as I mentioned, province and highly urbanized city. So, highly urbanized city, the 33, they are domain. So in most of the surveys, they will have data. But the municipalities, particularly the smaller ones, that's a problem. But with the CBMS, yes, we can do it barangay level, we can do it municipal level and group of municipalities that will constitute the district. So this is now easily accessible using the data that will be collected from the community-based monitoring system. Yeah. Yeah. What I think right now, because we are doing data collection, my suggestion is that you access the questionnaire so that you can identify what are the variables that are there in preparation for, let's say, any policy that our representatives will do in 2025. But definitely, we will provide this data, of course, anonymized to the House of Representatives. So my suggestion is that look at the questionnaire, identify what are the things that are interesting there that would help you. Thank you.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't have enough time for other questions. So maybe I'll just ask Dr. Mapa, your last message, especially that given that we're at the age where, in the era where AI is really kind of bloom. I mean, it's unstoppable right now. So maybe you can advise us how can we ensure that data-driven policymaking becomes a central pillar in governance.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the DAP, our president here, Maha, for inviting the Philippine Statistics Authority on sharing our work at the PSA related to the theme conference. The AI actually is very important, and as I did present, we are embracing that. Of course, we are very mindful also on the use, potential abuse of our AI. So, at the Philippine Statistics Authority, and I think this is very important, we have to firm up data governance so that we are ready when this technology is really utilized on a day-to-day basis, particularly in official statistics. So we have at the PSA, we have our data privacy and security unit that we put up, and they assess, they perform privacy impact assessment on all new techniques that we are doing to check the effects on our respondents, for example. So the data privacy unit of the PSA is like our data provider protector, making sure that the interest of the data provider is the one that is on top. So each of these methods, so this AI for CAP methodology went through the process of privacy impact assessment. So that's our practice. We are also enhancing, of course, with this, you have to secure your data. To be honest, because I mentioned we have a lot of data sets at the PSA. The one that keeps me awake at night is a potential problem of data breach. Because we have this census, we have this civil registry, we have the national ID. So we're also strengthening our data security. We have our cybersecurity division at the PSA to make sure that our data is secured and we are ready for any eventuality. So I think preparing the organization in terms of data governance is important as we embrace this new technology and new method of data collection. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Once again, let's all give NS Mapa a warm round of applause. Thank you. leaders who examined the Philippine offshore gaming operators or POGOs using the theory of change and systems thinking perspective respectively. Parallel Session B will feature the emerging leaders presenting their analysis of the issue of malnutrition. So here's how we're going to do this. Parallel Session A will be held here at the Grand Ballroom. So participants joining this session may remain seated here. On the other hand, Parallel Session B will be held at Verbena A and B located on the 9th floor. So for those who will be joining this session, kindly follow the ushers who will guide you to the rooms. Again, Parallel Session A will be held here at the Grand Ballroom. So you may just for participants joining this session, you may just remain seated here. And for those who are joining the Parallel Session B, please be guided by our ushers. Just follow them so they can guide you to the rooms. So the Parallel Sessions will start at 11 a.m. Thank you and see you later in the Parallel Sessions.